Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Shalom, shalom, family, and welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai. I'm one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, BINAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Our address is 382 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. We'd like to thank the Most High God for all things and everything. Thanking the Creator for this blessed holy season that has just gone past. And we pray that everyone has had a great holy season, that all your prayers have been answered, that all the endeavors of your mind that you desired in righteousness, that the Most High God has heard them, that all your sins and your transgressions would have been cleared, and that we will have a prosperous time going forward. Giving glory to the Most High, King of the universe, for all things and everything, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And we thank the Creator for being our protector and our shield and our buckler, even in these times of trouble in the world. Thanking the Creator of heaven and earth once again for the leadership of the congregation, even my brother, Chief Prince Yeriel Ben Yissaskar, that the Most High God be with him and his family and bless them. At this time, we're going to move ahead and we're going to actually close out the Torah for this cycle year. We're going to go into the Torah portion with Zohar Braka, which will be the Haftarah portion for with Zohar Braka, which will be covered by none other than one of my teachers and mentors, even Nasik Zurishaddai Ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
All right, great. First of all, I'd like to say, giving praises to the Supreme Eternal Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. To respect the platform I'm on, D.C.B channel platform, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Yeriel, to the host, Chief Uziel, to the Princess Chief, the Rabbinate, Cornine, and Maureen, and all the visitors, brothers and sisters that greet you all in the tongue of my forefathers. Shalom Aleichem, and my early Shabbat Shalom. And also, hope everybody had a nice car that just passed. I like to say, Adonai Septadi Takufiyagi Tiatheka, or Lord, I'm my lips, and my mouth should declare that praise. I'll be coming to the final portion of the segments that I try to contribute on Haftarah for this particular season, but I also wanted to speak on the season before I go into the last portion of Zohar Braka, which is really interesting, the season as well. So I know that a lot of people had such a hype, those that participate from Yom Teruah, or some might call it Rosh Hashanah, the Yom Kippur, the Sukkot, and closing out the day with Shemini Atzeret, and those that do the extra day and have a separate day for Simchat Torah, they do that, which is a rabbinic thing. First, I'm sure a lot of people had a lot of activity and a lot of enthusiasm about this particular year. And a lot of times we'd be very hyped around the season. And the sad part about it, we get hyped for a moment. We get uplifted, but we don't stay on that high plane. So when we look at how our season opens up with Yom Teruah, as was spoken on before, and then you hear, it's a memorial, the blowing of the shofar. So we got that alert, we got that alarm, we got that awareness sound. For those, it's not so much to see the shofar, but to hear the sound of the shofar blowing. So, and it's in the beginning of the month, 18, the 7th month, a new beginning, when it since it's a new moon. And then we take 10 days of trying to go through a penance cycle, trying to straighten out our character, our moral statute before the creator of heaven and earth. We spent the month before that trying to straighten out issues and problems with our fellow human being. But the 10 days from the sound of the shofar, we all should have been concentrating on how we're going to approach God on that great day of atonement, to try to be at one with him and afflict our souls in that particular time and ask for forgiveness. And after that particular time, knowing that we're the only people to have a date that's available for us and a time that's set for us where we are allowed to ask God for forgiveness for sins known and unknown, intentional and unintentional. We have that availability for us that one day out of the year. Then as we move forward, 5 days later, when we on an all-time spiritual high, then we got to leave the comfort of our house, the security of our house, and step into something they call a booth. And then when we come into the area of a booth, what they call it, a sukkah, and it's given an explanation that, remember that God caused the children of Israel to dwell in booths when we came out of Egypt. And as I said before, that we don't find any example where we ever dwelt in booths except in Leviticus, where it states that's what we did. But Bilam in the 40th year, all he seen was the tents. How goodly, pleasant are tents, O Jacob, that tabernacles, O Israel. That's what he seen. He didn't mention anything about a booth. So then I always say, well, what is a sukkah? And then where it comes from and what do it mean and what it entails. So all that I'm sure was explained by the various teachers in the various congregations about the sukkah, and also that the term itself, a sak, is pretty much referred to that cloud that that's extended over the mercy seat. So, but one of the takeaways that we realize is that we are told not during the time of spring Passover to come out the house and stay in the booth. We're told at the end of the year, as I said before, all our days have something to do with redemption, sanctification, and rededicating ourselves. So when we went through the time of Yom Kippur, we actually began to rededicate ourselves to try to be everything that the Creator wanted us to be. So when we leave out of the comforts of our brick buildings, stone buildings, our houses, and step out into the area of a hut that we built. And you notice when we start building the hut, we start building it. It's commanded to build one, and we're supposed to start right away, right after Yom Kippur. That's when we normally build it. But you know what else we started building right away at that time? The Mishkan. Right after we got the laws of Yom Kippur, and we observed Yom Kippur, then we pretty much started building the Mishkan immediately after that particular time. And when we look at, as we're going to finally touch on the Book of Kings about the season, Solomon, when he finished the temple, he finished it within the 7th month, but yet he had a dedication going on where it extended, for 14 days of dedication. So when he finished it, he celebrated not just the finishing of the Beit HaMikdash, which is the temple, but he also extended it into the time of Sukkot, and all the way to the time, to the end, which is called Shemini Atzeret, which is a separate holiday within its own right, or separate holy day within its own right. what we can learn is this, that we come out into the booth, and when we come out in the booth, we have an open roof, sitting under a cloudy, a starry deck heaven, where we expose ourselves to elements. And when we expose ourselves to the elements, what we are doing, and we're supposed to really dwell in those booths. That means you eat, you might sleep, you drink, whatever, or you study, you talk. But in that particular time, in that booth, what we're doing is saying, I trust in the security of the Most High. That's where my real security is. My security is not being in my house. My security is trusting in the Creator. So we exhibit that not only we're gratified that we had an opportunity to ask for forgiveness and atonement, but to show that we further trust that our prayers were somewhat answered, and that we pray to a true and living God, that we extract ourselves from false security that we build and we trust in normally, to expose ourselves to the elements where we say, I'm opening and exposing myself to you, the Creator. I'm opening up everything. Everything I'm about is for you. So that's what we do on around Sukkot. And what's interesting is that on atonement, when we fast, we have different mindsets, different levels of intelligence. You know, some people is high on the spiritual level, some people is low on the spiritual level. But when we go into the Sukkah and eat, your spiritual level doesn't make any difference now, you know, compared to the next individual. You know, we all doing the exact same thing that's compelled upon us, is to come and dwell there. That means that you might know more Torah than me. You might speak more Hebrew than I can. You might be able to sing better praises than I can. But when we enter the Sukkah, we all are equal before God, because we come applying to a command that I can do nothing greater than you in going other than what I'm ordered to do, which is go inside the Sukkah. So that is shows equality amongst the nation of Israel, and it alleviates ego, and it exemplifies the type of faith that we should have in our Creator. There's a lot more I could say, but I'm trying to not to be too long at the end of the season, because I want to cover two particular portions. But before I go into Bazot HaBraka to close out, and it's the reason I'm doing it this particular way, we're going to the book of 1 Kings. And in 1 Kings, I'm going to go to 1 Kings, and in the 8th chapter, when Solomon dedicated the temple to the Creator, for his name to dwell there. And what's interesting is that it's 400 and basically 80 years that since the tabernacle was, since we left Egypt and had to, and pretty much give or take a year or so, and we had the tabernacle, and until the temple was erected in Jerusalem. And what is interesting is that within that particular time, it took us that long to be able, to say that this could be a permanent holy spot. Before that, we didn't have a permanent holy spot. We had a spot that was made and sanctified to be holy, by virtue of the items in the tabernacle being erected there. So in the book of Kings, when Solomon dedicated, and it took 7 years, to build the Beit HaMikdash. And it's important that when you read it carefully, because the term it used when he had workers working 1 month, chopping down trees, and he had people coming back for 2 months, and he had, a lot of workers and working in Forest, Lebanon. But then altogether, he had over 180-some thousand workers that actually worked on the temple itself. And they use a term that's unique called mas, which is like same thing that's used in Egyptian slavery. It was so much so that it had to be focused on, which I'm not going to go into now, but you can look for yourself in the book when they built the temple, that he said that he did not make the people in Israel servants or slaves. And so that's important, because the way it was seen off the top, that he taxed and said these guys going away for for a month and come and stay home for 2 months, and you had these guys changing courses like that. That would be very questionable, that the writer had to put in the book that he made not the children of Israel slaves while they was working on that. So most monuments is through slave labor, but it had to be mentioned that we wasn't building the temple through slave labor, though it may appear as such. So, and we in the portion of Shemini Atzeret, which is the day after, I like to point out when we talk about Shemini Atzeret, which we refer to as the day after Booth, because we dwell in Booth 7 days. So the time of Sukkot only lasts, for 7 days, from the 15th, to the 20th, inclusive, and then the 21st inclusive, and then after that you have what you call Shemini Atzeret. Shemini Atzeret is a separate holy day. Now, during the time of Sukkot, those that read and follow, certain traditions, I read the book in the book of Numbers, the sacrifices, we offer a total of 70 bullocks, starting off with 14, going down progressively, 13, such and such, 12, 11, down to 7. And then after that, then we have another holy convocation, a solemn assembly. And we don't have any major connection with Shemini Atzeret, only what we can extrapolate, which is just saying that it comes after the 7 days of Booth. It's a holy convocation, and only from rabbinic, interpretation, you might see where it say, okay, we offered for everybody else the 70 nations that existed, but when it comes down to us, the Creator had a time separate for us, for his people. Because when we look at the sacrifice is greatly different for Shemini Atzeret. So the beginning of Sukkot is a holy convocation, where you're not supposed to do any servile work other than what you need for the feast, the carb. After you dwell in Booth those 7 days, then the 8th day, you don't have to dwell in the booth on the 8th day. It's a separate holiday in itself, which is referred to as a Mikra Kodesh, a holy convocation, or a solemn assembly, or Shemini Atzeret, as we would say. But what's interesting is that you have in the book of Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter, and when you read, first time you find, you find another term, the 16th chapter of the book of Deuteronomy, and I believe around the 8th verse. And the 8th verse of Deuteronomy, when it's talking about the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And it says, 6 days should eat unleavened bread. So we know the Feast of Unleavened Bread, though it comes in with Pesach, it only has its name from that sunrise of the first day until the end. But the 7th day in Deuteronomy is called Shemini Atzeret. And that's the only time you see that other term, Shemini Atzeret. it might be a trivial to find out what it means. Why they put it there in that particular portion, which is Moses' teaching and dialogue concerning that, as opposed to we see it no place else in the Tanakh. So this is something to try to consider, that Moses associated that along with the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the seventh day, which is called Shemini Atzeret, only in the book of Deuteronomy, 16th chapter, 8th verse. So now, here it is that we in the book of Kings, that I'm going to read a little bit from before I go into Bazot HaBraka, is in reference to part of the prayer after the dedication that Solomon had. And I'm just going to start just a little bit of it, and then we're going to go back to Bazot HaBraka to close out. In the first chapter, 1 Kings, 8th chapter, 41st verse, I just want to read this because it's very important. Moreover, concerning the stranger that is not of thy people Israel, when he shall come out of a far country for thy name's sake, for they shall hear of thy great name, and of thy mighty hand, and of thy outstretched arm, when he shall come and pray towards this house. And this is how Solomon built. You're talking about a stranger. God haven't done anything yet for this individual. But this individual just heard a little bit, and he decided to come. And he says, hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, and do according to all that the stranger calleth to thee for, that all the peoples of the earth may know thy name, to fear thee, as does thy people Israel, and that they may know that thy name is called upon this house which I have built. So now, that's the only person, or persons we talk about in the plural, an outsider that Solomon said in his prayer at the dedication, that hear the stranger and answer his prayer, all of it, not some of it, all that he asked for. That's a tall order, and I mean, to answer everything that the stranger asked for, and simply because he heard and he decided to come to the house that Solomon built, that's something to consider, because sometimes even some of our people be jealous over other people that might pray to the same God you pray to, and they might have a little difference here and there. And I'm talking even amongst Israelites, you might have a little difference here and a little difference in that, and be condescending or really antagonistic against one another. I mean, simply because he praying to the same God, but he may not look or pray the same way you do. But this is what Solomon said at the beginning, and he didn't say that concerning the Israelites. So when you read the prayer, it's really unique when we look at it. And then I'm gonna skip on down to the part that would be part of the Haftarah for Shemini Atzeret. Now, Shemini Atzeret is, has his own particular Haftarah, and it comes from the same chapter, but the Haftarah picks up in the 54th verse, and it goes to the 66th, which is the end of this particular chapter, and which is a conclusion of Solomon's blessings. Because after he prayed for things, then he started to talk about a blessing, looking for a blessing, a petition. And it said in the 54th verse, and it says, and it was so that when Solomon had made an end of praying all this prayer and supplication unto the Lord, he arose from before the altar of the Lord, from kneeling on his knees with his hands spread forth towards heaven. And he stood and blessed all the congregation of Israel with a loud voice, saying. So he had made certain prayers facing the altar, but notice now, though he built the temple, he's not inside the temple. He's outside by the brazen altar that everybody would normally see. And then from that point, he rises up. And he said, well, we have a priestly blessing. But Solomon decided to bring about a blessing. Hence, we know, and when we get to Bazot HaBraka, and we talk about the blessing, every great leader, if you care about the people, like to leave a blessing behind. So in the 56th verse, it says, "Blessed be the Lord that have given rest unto his people Israel, according to all that he had promised. They have not failed one word of all his good promise, which he promised by the hand of Moses, his servant." That's why this is mostly picked up near the end of the year, because it's mentioned about Moses. We know Moses getting ready to make his transition. And also Shemini Atzeret tends to conclude our festive season. So 57th verse says, "The Lord our God be with us as he was with our fathers. Let him not leave us nor forsake us, that he may incline our hearts unto him, to walk in all his ways and to keep his commandments and his statutes and his ordinances, which he commanded our fathers. And let these my words, wherewith I have made supplication before the Lord, be nigh unto the Lord our God day and night, that he maintain the cause of his servant and the cause of his people Israel, as every day shall require." That means, can you afford to skip a day of praying? You know, you can't afford to say, "I'm not going to pray today. I'm too tired to pray today." Or, "God knows my heart, so I don't need to say anything today." Solomon letting you know that you will need assistance from the Creator every waking moment. And he needed as a king that's endowed with all his wisdom. And in 60 verse says, "That all the peoples of the earth may know that the Lord, he is God, there is none else. All right. Let your hearts therefore be whole with the Lord our God, to walk in his statutes and to keep his commandments as at this day." That means the Israelites are doing okay. Usually when Israelites have most problems, I'm gonna tell you when they had the most problems in history and even today. When we don't try to work on something laudable to further our observance and this way of life before God. That's when we had the most problems. The minute we say, okay, we ain't got no real work, we got to come up with a plan, see what we want to do. That means right then and there that we reach a dangerous spot in our lives when we got to sit down and we got to say, I need to see what we can do now. That's a dangerous spot, because it's almost like saying, let me see, what time should I pray today? You know, it's almost that dangerous. You know, so the thing is that when they worked on the tabernacle in the wilderness, we know how much problems they gave Moses. We know how much problem we caused God, but no one died during that particular time. We don't have a report of any casualties, no attack. Everybody worked. They worked so well that Moses had to bless them with the same formula that's in Bereshit at the end. When in the book of Genesis, when God finished the heavens and earth. So this is what the king is talking about. All right. And he said, you know, to walk in his statutes and keep his commandments as at this day. That means the children of Israel, when they worked on the tabernacle, the temple in Solomon's time, there was no attacks, no ailments, no casualties, no loss. You know, most people, when you work on a major edifice, you're going to have some people get injured. You know, a stone or something fall on a person and break a leg. Some person fall down, break their neck. None of that. We don't have no reports of that. And we had over 180 some workers on the temple. And in the 62nd verse, it says, and the king and all Israel with him offered sacrifices before the Lord. And Solomon offered for the sacrifice of peace offerings, which he offered unto the Lord, 220,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the children of Israel dedicated the house of the Lord. The same day did the king hollow the middle of the court that was before the house of the Lord. For there he offered the burnt offerings and the meal offerings and the fat of the peace offerings, because the brazen altar that was before the Lord was too little to receive the burnt offerings and the meal offerings and the fat of the peace offerings. Now, so what he did, we allowed to build a stone altar of stone on the ground. So if you make me an altar, you can make it of stone, but not hewn stone, unless you lift up your tool upon it. You know what I mean? You had polluted it. So that means that the very altar that they had that was used for the Mishkan from way back from Moses' time, that wasn't suffice. And the numbers isn't interesting, but for those that want to go into it, which is not my platform today, about the 22,000 and 120,000. It's a lot of interesting things dealing with the numbers itself and the animals that they're using. But that's not my top. That's not what I'm focused on today. I'm just showing that the magnitude of dedication. And so he dedicating the temple, but at the same time, he rededicating the people to the Creator at the very same time. So Solomon held the feast at that time with all Israel with him, a great congregation from the entrance of Hamat to the brooks of Egypt, before the Lord our God 7 days, and 7 days, even 14 days. On the 8th day, he sent the people away, and they blessed the king. And they blessed the king, and went unto their tents joyful and glad of heart for all the goodness that the Lord had shown unto David his servant, and to Israel his people. Now, what's interesting, what's interesting when you read that thing, it says they went to their tents. So we know Sukkot come in this particular time because we get dates. So we know Sukkot came in this particular time, but they went to their tents. But they was blessed and they went back to their tents joyful. Why? Because you got a lot of people that travel to Jerusalem at that time. That's one of the 3 Shalosh Regalim, the 3 pilgrimage times that all males must appear, and also the families. And if it was a Shemitah year, there's always going to be some Torah taught at that particular time. So they enjoying themselves, they learning Torah, and it's not like a bunch of hotels like you got Motel 6 and Holiday Inn and all that kind of stuff. So people are actually camping out beyond that time, return to their tents, because now after a feast of that magnitude, that what's interesting, you'll hear about Yom Kippur in between that time. One part you can see exactly when they left. So that means that Yom Kippur, when you're working on something so great, at such a magnitude, and you're so dedicated to God, that their Yom Kippur was not necessary for those people at that time. They worked right through Yom Kippur. And in actuality, you never see where anybody ever observed Yom Kippur in the book, but yet it's part of our law. And yet you see at this time, they constantly celebrating on Yom Kippur. So if you're celebrating, the fast is not going to be part of the celebration. So those are some of the things we could look at there. And we're going to go back to Bezot HaBraka. And I just want to bring out a couple of things in Bezot HaBraka as we go forward. And that starts from the 34th chapter of Deuteronomy and goes to the end of Deuteronomy. And Bezot HaBraka, which means, and this is the blessing. With Moses, the man of God, blessed the children of Israel before his death. All right. So, and I'm just going to read a couple of things here. It says, and he said, the Lord came from Sinai and rose from Seir. Unto them he shined forth from Mount Paran, and he came from the mirage holy. At his right hand was a fiery law unto them. Yea, he loved the peoples, all his holy ones, they are in thy hand, and they sit down at thy feet, receiving of thy words. And then the 4th verse is a little changed now. It says, and Moses commanded us a law and inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. And there was a king in Yeshurun with the heads of the people, when the heads of the people were gathered, all the tribes of Israel together. Now, most people, and when I read, I'm not going to go through all these blessings, but the blessing is not what he said for Reuben alone. The blessing is not what he said for Yehudah or or, you know, I mean, or all the rest of the tribes, you know, I mean, you pick a tribe, you know, I mean, Levi and stuff like that. I mean, those are blessings, yes. But when he said this is the blessing, it's the blessing to know that the Creator had did all this, what I just read for you. That is the blessing. That's why it says, you know, well, Wezot Habraka, you know, people say Wezot Habraka, which means, and this, and the singular is the blessing. Not these are the blessings, but this is the blessing. And what I just read there, that's what it's talking about, what the Creator had did and came for us. And also the thing about the law, a fiery law, it said, you know, it's our heritage, you know, it's part of our heritage, you know. So now the difference is a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, you know, even a 7-year-old can't go really and purchase anything, an item of worth, because they're not capable of it. So they're not allowed to purchase. But when it comes to an inheritance, a newborn baby could get the inheritance. You know, a newborn baby can inherit something. Now, you might have to have somebody look out there for you so he could be, you know, like mature enough to realize what he got. But he gets that right away. But a 5-year-old or 3-year-old can't just go ahead and make a purchase. So that means that when it comes to this way of life, when it comes to this law that we read about and that we try to live our lives by, it's something we have an inheritance for that. That's part of our heritage and our inheritance. So that we don't have to buy. We don't have to lose that. You know, that belongs to us. Whether we recognize it, appreciate it, gravitate to it, it's on the individual. That's one of the best things I could bring out. And I'm going to bring out a couple more points and then we'll skip on down. But the first one he mentions about Reuben. And, you know, one of the things about Reuben, you know, after he mentioned about Reuben, it said, let Reuben live and not die, and that his men become few. We know about the stories about Reuben. And then it goes with Judah. You know, it says, and this for Yehudah, for Judah, and he shall hear. And he said, hear, Lord, the voice of Judah, and bring him in unto his people. His hand shall contend for him, and thou shalt be a help against his adversaries. All right, and I'm going to just read one more. And it says, and Levi, he said, thy Thummim and thy Urim be with thy Holy One, whom thou didst prove at Massah, with whom thou didst strive at the waters of Meribah. All right, and we know the rest of this talks about. All right, so now I just want to focus on those three before I skip on out of that particular portion and go to the last part. Reuben, we know is the firstborn, but he said, let him live. Why? Reuben, actually, he lived in a dangerous territory. He lived in a wild frontier that belonged to Og and, you know, king of Bashan, you know, and Sihon, king of the Amorites. So his territory is in a dangerous area, open area. And you see the guys that had it before, they was giants, big folks, mighty. So you had to be tough. So he's going to be in a lot of danger. And plus, those people, Reuben, along later on with Gad, going to have to be a stormtrooper. Now, Manasseh, the reason I didn't bring them into it, even though they're going to be half of the tribe over there, and the other half across the Jordan, is that one of the great things when we look at it is that those particular guys, Gad and Reuben, because Gad brought the proposal to Moses first. We know right then and there that they going to be stormtroopers, shock troopers. They're going to risk their life to help the other people on the other side gain their inheritance. I guess they never thought it'd be 14 years, but it was a long time. So now also you say, well, why not Simeon? He should come after, you know, Reuben, and then why Levi coming in third after Yehudah? And so there's no, definitive answer, but this is some of the views I would like to share with you. Is that when you look at the history of the actual patriarch for the tribe of Reuben himself, and the actual patriarch for the tribe of Yehudah, and the season we just went through, if we tied on in, that we went through a season where we tried to repent of what we did. The first guy to try to show some kind of consideration and try to make a change in his life after he did what he did concerning his father's concubine was Reuben. He did try to, consider trying to rescue another man. So he was trying to make a change in his life, how he move and operate. When it comes down to Yehudah, after he did what he did, you notice that he had a change in life as well. When he went down from his brothers, not only physically, but morally, that even in his low state, not only he was willing to sacrifice himself for another individual, but he also saved a person from being sacrificed and executed, such as Tamar, where the kings come out of that particular line of the children that Tamar had. So that's interesting in itself. And we know the Levites and the descendant of the golden calf had, when Moses said all those on the Lord's side, it said the whole tribe of Levi, the whole tribe of them joined Moses, and they went in and started getting rid of the idol worshipers. But what's interesting, and I'm gonna try to move on just a little bit more quicker, hopefully. In the 8th verse, you find it says, Thy Thummim and thy Urim be with thy holy ones. This is the only place where it usually say Urim and Thummim. That's what you see throughout the whole book, Urim and Thummim. And those things they use sometimes to ask important national questions, or whether we should go to war, or if there's a problem going on in the camp, that you need to find out where the trouble coming in at. So it was used to be consulted, and even Joshua later on, as we know, supposed to consult the high priest, who was supposed to use the Urim and Thummim. Why this reverse order now? And it's the only place that you'll find where it says Thummim and Urim. That is something to kick around. Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the answer myself, but I find it, and I really didn't try to probe any more, hear different viewpoints on it. So, but that'd be a good area of this discussion, knowing what it's used for and why is it now only in this particular location that, and you will never find it written no other way, that it's reversed here. So I'm gonna move on and go into the 34th chapter of Deuteronomy. All right, so excuse me. And it says, and Moses went up from the plains of Moab unto Mount Nebo to the top of Pisgah, that is over against Jericho. And the Lord showed him all the land, even, in fact, maybe I need to go back just a little bit. Let me see. Okay. All right, okay. So Moses told the guy, anyway, let me just read this here out, since short chapter. And Moses went up from the plains of Moab unto Mount Nebo to the top of Pisgah, that is over against Jericho. And the Lord showed him all the land, even Gilead as far as Dan, and all of Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, and all the lands of Judah, and as far as the Hinder Sea, and the south, and the plains, even the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees, as far as Zor. And the Lord said unto him, this is the land which I swore unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, saying, I will give it unto thy seed. I will cause thee to see it with thine eyes, but thou shalt not go over thither. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab according to the word of the Lord. Now, this is really interesting. When Moses seen something, it's not only he's seen the land that far, because that's, I mean, you're up in the mountain, and I mean, how you really could look at a grape, even though they have some big grapes and big fruits, from way up in the mountains. How can you look at the grass or the metals really and just say, well, is it really that green? Is it really that plush? And will it stay like that? Moses was able to see, not only on the mountain, but able to see the potential of what the land can be for anybody, being as the glory of all lands. Israel is located in the crossroad of all the ancient civilizations. They go east, west, north, or south to any major empire. You will come to the land of Israel. So it's a major crossroad. And so it's a central hub. And not only that, but being able to see the land and saying that suffice, I can see what's a great potential that you can have. Sometimes, one of the things when I said in one of my talks is that we ride across a bridge every day, some of us, and we never pay attention about what work it took to build that bridge and who had to come up with schematics to build the bridge and what made them think about a bridge of that design. So those type of things, when we look at it. And so Moses himself, and it said, and he died, but he died, and it says, according to the word of the Lord. That means that why, as we're going to see later on, that even at his very moment, he's going to follow a command. That's something. So God commanded, that's what I must do. So you could ask and say, well, if he didn't want to do it, since it was a command, God could have just killed him too. And say, okay, I told you to die and you don't want to die. Or if God could have lived forever in misery. So that's something to consider, that God told him to die, and his last act is, I'm going to follow God's command. I'm just going to die. And some people will say, they will themselves dead. I don't know about that. I'm not trying to do that, but I'm just saying this is something to really consider, the mindset of an individual. He was told to go up there and die, in the mountain, that he was going to die. But a person actually going to will themselves to die, that's something. We always had this expression at funerals, or when the person leaves, say they gave up the ghost. Did they give it up, or the ghost was taken? The spirit, as we're going to say. So now it goes on further, and it says that and he was buried in the valley of the land of Moab, over against Beth-peor, and no man knoweth his sepulchre unto this day. Weren't we just told where he is at? We were just told just now where Moses was buried. How come nobody knows where it's at now? That's just something right there to consider, as we go through this particular portion, closing out. And it says, and Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eyes were not dim, nor his natural force abated. All right. So now, that's information we never got before. I spoke on it before. It's to show you that he didn't have any disease, but not only to show you he had no disease, and he was just as strong as a young man. Moses was naturally strong as a young man. And what is even more, like you might get suitcase on your eyes, you might get wrinkles as you get older. Moses did not wrinkle. That's a point of telling us that he didn't have no sign of age. And when he was told to die, he was healthy, healthy as the border health I used to say when I was coming up, so he was a healthy individual. and yet this information is given concerning him when he died, and it goes on. You know, one of the sad part about it. I'll read just one more verse, and it says, and the children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days. So the days of weeping in the morning for Moses were ended. All right. Now they mourn from 30 days. That's the normal mourning right we get. But what I like to bring out that's interesting in that area is that we think about Moses. We know him as the meekest man in the whole earth. But we don't. We know that he stood and was willing to risk his life in the sin of the golden calf. But we never ever think about the greatness as when we was at Mount Sinai. God spoke to all the people at Mount Sinai, and you know when they was conscious, and when he was giving us the law, those 10 commandments that most people commonly refer to, and they said, Moses, speak thou with us, and we will hear, but let not God speak with us, lest we die. And it says, Moses drew unto the thick darkness where God was. If you are scared, if you saying you're going to die if you keep hearing God, then I got to put my life on the line where you know that death could be possibly waiting for me. So we only think about him standing up and putting his life on the line for us at the sin of the golden calf. But we don't see the sacrifice that he's making at the time when 600,000 men of war and their families are afraid to hear God, that he got to go into a thick darkness. Now, one thing I mentioned earlier about the Kohen on Yom Kippur, he goes into an area and only thing he has is some incense, and he got to make a cloud with that. And you got to be able to, you know, so how much can you see in a cloud? How much can you breathe in the cloud? And that cloud is referred to as the Sak, you know, which is where Sukkot come from. But that's another story, as we say. And the 9th verse says, and Joshua the son of Nun was full of the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands upon him, and the children of Israel hearkened unto him, and did as the Lord commanded Moses. And there has not arisen a prophet since in Israel, like unto Moses. All right. This is the first time Moses ever called a prophet. Throughout the whole book, his whole existence, he's never called a prophet until this point here. He's called the prophet. All right. And it says, and there has not arisen. That means literally said there'll be no more prophet like him. That's what it really is saying in the Hebrew. That there has never be another one like him, like Moses. You know, and said, prophet since in Israel like unto Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. Why is it important to know it face to face? We'll get to that in a moment. And all the signs and the wonders which the Lord sent him to do in the land of Egypt to Pharaoh and to all his servants and to all his land, and in all the mighty hand and all the great terror which Moses wrought in the sight of all Israel. We know the Creator was the one, the power behind the throne. We know that. And he normally say, when you finish the book, you know, Kazak, Kazak, be strong, let's make one another strong or strengthen ourselves. So we're going to Haftarah for that. And this will conclude my session for the Haftarah, which is the first book of Joshua. And so the Sephardi goes in the book of Joshua from first chapter of Joshua from 1 to 9. I'll just finish out the first chapter, which is the 18th verse, all the way to the 18th verse. So just indulge me, because just, you know, close out on that. So if you got that, Joshua, the first chapter, Chief.
We're in the book of Joshua, chapters 1, verses 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Now it came to pass, after the death of Moses, the servant of Yehudah, that Yehudah spoke unto Joshua the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying, Moses my servant is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all this people, unto the land which I do give to them, even to the children of Yisrael. every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, to you have I given it, as I spoke unto you, Moses.
Hold it there. All right. One thing here. All right. The Creator told Joshua, arise, and go over to Jordan. Now, we know the book don't always give everything in a chronological order, but we know that Joshua, as we read later on, was told, that in 3 days he's supposed to cross this Jordan. All right. They mourned for Moses was 30 days. Now, but what we cannot miss in this here area here is that he sent 2 spies secretly over to Jericho. So when would he send the people over to Jericho? It can't be, at the time, when God said, okay, get ready to go. That means that they already had left. And so when I'm bringing this out to show that when they went stop at Rahab's house, and they was, she hit them, and the people of Jericho was trying to, the king and everybody looking for these guys, and she told them that, they seen them headed back, you could catch up with them, overtake them. All right. And he told the people, and she told the men, head to the mountains and stay there 3 days. So I'm bringing this out because when we read, sometimes we might not keep track of certain chronological order. So they had mourned for Moses for 30 days. These guys is on a mission, and you figure the mission will come after the morning. and the Creator said, and had these people prepared to leave in 3 days. So if you try to, make the connection that Joshua is ready to make this trip across the Jordan at God's command, irregardless of what information those 2 guys coming back with, whether people are afraid or not, whether, it's going to be a hard fight or not. The Creator told him, you're going to have to be prepared to leave in 3 days. So when we read later on about the 2 spies that were sent secretly out, and I'm bringing that out because you might not see it in the chronological order, is that those guys there, information didn't matter to Joshua because the Creator had already told him, you got to leave in 3 days. People had to be prepared to cross the Jordan in 3 days. So I just want to bring that out right then. But let's go from the 4th verse.
In the 4th verse, from the wilderness and this Lebanon, even unto the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites unto the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your border. There shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. I will not fail thee nor forsake thee. Be strong and of good courage, for thou shalt cause this people to inherit the land which I swore unto their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous to observe to do according to all the law which Moses, thy servant, my servant, commanded thee. Turn not from it to the right or to the left, that thou mayest have good success whithersoever thou goest.
Stop right there before we go to the 8th verse. All right. What's important is that the Creator said, I'm going to be with you, and then if the Creator said, I'm going to be with you, only be strong and of good courage, then if I believe in God, I'm actually the disciple of Moses. I know what God could do, and yet you're telling me to be strong and of good courage. I'm talking to you, talking to me. I'm hearing you. I got full of wisdom, but sometimes even a great person may doubt themselves or lose track of doing Lord. So one thing is to be strong to do what I say, and also be strong to observe the laws that's given. And you're only going to be successful when you do both of those. So Joshua's victory is based on not only doing what the Creator say do, but also obeying the laws that he was taught by his mentor, Moses. So his success and his victory is only guaranteed through conditions that's set before him. And that's why it says, be strong, good courage, and say, only be strong, good courage again. Because, yeah, you might be strong, good courage knowing I'm with you as a leader and that you're the leader. But you may not be strong to uphold law and hold the standard that these people need to live by. So some people say, okay, I know I got backup, but I may not have no spine, you know what I mean, to do what is necessary. All right? And that's why it's reiterated here. Let's go on. And so his success, and it says, then thou shalt have good success. I thought success got to be good, period. But it says good success here. Let you know it must be something a little bit different in the equation. But let's go for the 9th.
9.
All right, read it. Yeah.
It reads, verse 8. This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth,
Yes.
but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy ways prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success.
Go right there, hold it. That means any Israelite leader that don't study continually. You know, when they say, when I lies down, when I rise up. Now, some people get the idea that all I'm going to do is study ain't going to work. Then you're going to starve. You're going to starve. I'm just in my books. That's all. I'm trying to get spiritual. That's it. Well, you got to get physical with them jobs out there. You got to do certain things. You got to have activity. So what it means when David says, I meditate in the Lord day and night, that means I might read a chapter of God, something in the book of the Lord this morning, when I get up, and before I go to sleep. Not just saying prayers, I'm going to read something in the law. Every leader that's going to hopefully to be a successful leader, even if no more in your household, you got to say, okay, I'm going to take a couple of minutes and read something in the law that's going to strengthen me. And then when you get ready to go to bed, say, oh, I know I'm really tired. Okay, I'm gonna try to get a few verses somewhere in here and read something in the law, you know, as well as you're going to do your prayers, and then go to sleep. You know, so you read something, and if you build up a habit like that, you know, then you're going to always have good success, because you wake up in the morning, you say your prayer, you know, and then you start looking through the book and try to read something in the law to strengthen you, you know, and you know, and empower you. And then when you get ready to go to bed, you can't protect yourself with your eyes closed. You know, the world don't exist for you. So you read a book of the law. And you done said your prayers, but you read a book of the law. So that's why I say you can meditate on the law. You're thinking about it. You're considering it. You're talking about it day and night. You'll go to sleep dreaming about what chapter you're going to bust down when you get up there to talk about the book. You're going to sleep and say, wow, what I'm doing talking about the book now? Oh, in my dream, I'm busting down. We're arguing about certain verses in the book. That's a good thing, because now you're going to sleep and you're waking up considering Torah all the time. All right, so that's what he's talking about here. Keep on to continue.
Verse 9. Have not I commanded thee, be strong and of a good courage? Be not affrighted, neither be thou dismayed, for Yehudah thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest.
All right, there. Anyway, this God talking to him. So God knows how you feel. God knows what you're thinking. And if God had to tell, did Moses tell anybody, I'm going to die? They already mourning for Moses. They're mourning for him. And the Creator said, look here, my servant is dead. I mean, he's dead already. He ain't coming back. Joshua had to get a revelation independent of Moses. Again, it's different when they got the song with the lyrics, Hazienu, while his teacher is still there. But now, I was told if I had a problem after I've been endowed with all this here authority, is ask Eleazar, the priest, the high priest, and you consult us, the Urim and Thummim, and we'll figure it out from there. But let's go a little bit further. 10.
It reads, Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, verse 11, pass through the midst of the camp, and command the people, saying, prepare your victuals, for within 3 days ye ought to pass over this Jordan, to go in to possess the land which Yehudah your God giveth you to possess it. And to the Reubenites, and to the Gadites, and to the half tribe of Manasseh spoke Joshua, saying, remember the word which Moses, the servant of Yehudah, commanded you, saying, Yehudah your God giveth you rest, and will give you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your cattle shall abide in the land which Moses gave you beyond the Jordan, but ye shall pass over before your brethren, armed, all the mighty men of valor, and shall help them, until Yehudah have given your brethren rest, as unto you, and they also have possessed the land which Yehudah your God giveth them. Then ye shall return unto the land of your possession, and possess it, which Moses, the servant of Yehudah, gave you beyond the Jordan towards the sun rising. And they answered to Joshua, saying, all that thou hast commanded us we will do, and whithersoever thou sendest us we will go. According as we hearken unto Moses in all things, so will we hearken unto thee. Only Yehudah thy God be with thee, as he was with Moses.
Hold on right there before we go to the last verse. All right. They said, look, God better be with you now. Ain't that something? That's something to tell. That's something to tell. You got a bunch of warriors out there. You tell them, I know the contract that you made. I know it ain't like Moses had this secret meeting with y'all, and y'all say, okay, Moses dead, so that the contract is dead. I said no. So transition of power also was the transition of authority. He had the authority passed over to him, and it said, your contract is still in effect. I'm the contract holder, and then they come off strong. Look, well, we're gonna do what you say, but God better be with you. That sounds like a serious, threat there. But the Creator had told him, and these are some of the characters that we know about. They're real people. They're not fictitious people. It's not just a mirage of people that we think we see. These are real people with human feelings when we look into this book. But the last verse.
Verse 18 reads, whosoever he be that shall rebel against thy commandment, and shall not hearken unto thy words in all that thou commandest him, he shall be put to death. Only be strong and of good courage. Hallelujah. Okay,
they had to remind him. Yeah, they had to remind him again. Only be strong and of good courage. If they don't follow the command, the only judgment gonna be for death. That's something. This is war now. That's serious. You say, well, did he understand it? Did he make a mistake? It seemed kind of like a lex talionis, as they were saying, law of the claw, so to speak. Like a no nonsense. We don't have any ifs, ands, or buts about that. So, and they saying that, that a man should be put to death. You didn't hear that from Joshua as of yet. If anybody don't follow my orders. So, he got a crew that he really got to work with. A serious crew. And what's interesting as I come to a close, Bezot HaBraka, most people say Bezot HaBraka, the blessing, and it ends it, and it's the Haftarah that fittingly ends it. Joshua not only begins the period of judges, because he's the first judge. We always think about the judges, and we think about Jephthah and Gilead and all these other Samson, Shimshon, all these different guys here. But Joshua actually begins the period of Judges, and also he begins the prophecy, because we deal with the Tanakh. So we're dealing with, Tanakh is the acronym for the Torah, which we say is the first 5 books, and the Nevi'im, which is the prophecies, and then Ketuvim, which is the writings, like Psalms, Proverbs, stuff like that, Chronicles. But so Joshua is actually the first book of the prophets. Maybe you're going to talk about prophecy. Here's its beginning. And what's so unique about Joshua, as we get ready to leave this situation, is that Joshua is the first man to embody and empower and carry on Moses' legacy. So that means that since this particular Sidra, Result of Barker, never ever ends, most people this Shabbat will be going in the book of Genesis. I'll be trying to start a series on Psalms. So I'm going to be looking at starting a series on Psalms itself. But one of the things that I hope, I know I gave a lot of different viewpoints. I'm sure I made quite a few mistakes over the period of time. But like I said, any mistakes been my own. And my purpose was not to, change people's viewpoints, but give them a point of view that hopefully can create a better change within them. All right. So with that, I'm saying Shalom Aleichem and early Shabbat Shalom. And thank everybody for your time and support the D.C.B channel, as much as possible. Any comments? If you don't leave a comment, if you make a statement, there's no need for me to reply. If you have a question, if I see it, I'll try my best to reply to the questions that's given. And like I said, I'm not, there's so many guys out there to debate. So I'm not focusing on debating. If I can explain myself a little better of something I'm, made a great mistake on, then I own it. And it's not necessarily the viewpoints of D.C.B platform. It's, Crown Prince Zurishaddai speaking, from a little bit of knowledge I might have over the years. With that, I say, again, Shalom Aleichem and Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for your time.
Nasik. One thing I was laughing about when I read on verse 16 and 7, the beginning of 17, and they answered Joshua, this is the people saying, all that thou hast commanded us we will do, whithersoever thou sendest us we will go, according as we hearken unto Moses in all things, so we will hearken unto you. It's ironic to me because they didn't hearken to Moses on all things.
Well, they, they used the little term, I heard you, but I didn't, I'm not listening, in that sense. I heard you, but I'm not listening, because we got to realize Joshua know who he's dealing with, because he's with the former generation.
Right.
And he see these boys grow up.
Right.
So now you got a whole crew of desert guys, that they about this desert life. They don't know nothing about the palaces and all that fancy stuff. These guys are frontier dudes. So you got, the Rough Riders, almost like David. So he know what he's working with in that sense. When the people even say, look at our heritage fell in our lap.
Right.
They telling Moses that, our heritage fell in our lap.
My other question is, should Reuben and the half tribe of Manasseh and should they have returned back home, because it didn't seem like they cleared the whole land of all the people that they were supposed. When you read later in history, they didn't clear the land of all the people.
Yeah, what is sad, I really didn't point it out much. I hinted at it a little bit, is that Joshua only reigned for about roughly about maybe 8. Let me see. He's 82, died at 110. So he didn't reign but 20-some years.
18 years.
18, yeah, 18. Yeah, he didn't reign that long. His authority didn't last that long. He died at 110.
No, he reigned for 28 years. You said at 110.
Yeah, that's right.
So he reigned for 28 years. 82.
Yeah, 20-something. Yeah. So he didn't live that long. I mean, his authority didn't last that long, for them to conquer, and and they was allowed to go back home. So evidently, they, a lot of people were satisfied with what they had at the time, and then according to, it's a lot of explanations, a lot of speculations is that the Creator said, "I'm not going to drop them all at one time." But they're going to be like a snare to you and stuff like that. So Joshua, and then it's another thing too, that we were supposed to fight 7 nations greater and mightier than us. Moses slayed 2 kings, and Joshua had to deal with 31. So you had 31 kingdoms. We're talking about 7 nations, but now you got 31 kingdoms that you got to conquer. So his job was magnanimous, and especially the territory that they say, there's something to say what that might be in the future, because we never really occupied that much territory at any given time that we know of.
Okay. Those are just a couple of things that I always taught about, that the people said we would listen to you. But now you bring up a great point. I'm thinking in terms of the people that been there, but this is a new crew. This is the crew, the 20 and older is not there. This is the young crew.
Right.
So that where the oldest will be what, 39 at least?
Let's see, give him 40 years in the wilderness, and you say 19 and give him 40,
40, right.
Give him 40 on 19, 59.
No, yeah, about 59, right. The oldest will be about 59, yeah. So they would have had some elders, but some young elders. They wouldn't have had Joshua and Caleb are actually the oldest elders that they probably had out there.
Other than Levites or females.
Okay.
Because the females wasn't part of that, and the Levites wasn't a part of the count.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So you said because why you say that? Because they all came over to the side of the Lord?
No. I mean, they was taken, that could be helpful, but they never was counted with the rest of the children of Israel for war. Okay. It said all the men that came out for war, the Levites wasn't part of the count.
Gotcha.
When they were told to take the census.
Got you.
Yeah, they had their own census.
Got you. Okay. Thank you. You learn something new every year, and that's the beauty of this Torah and repeating it year by year, that you learn something new every year.
Right, and that's why the Baruch has never spoken on Shabbat, but as a sidra. So we're going back again, so like a never-ending process, And one of the things about the blessing is being able to go back and rediscover God on a higher level.
Okay. So do you think in the Wazoha Braka with the blessing, you think that Moshe went a little bit too? He went a little hard for his tribe. He extended that blessing a little longer than I think. Maybe not Yosef, but everybody else, he kind of extended that blessing more for Levi. Don't you think so?
Well, the thing is,
little nepotism.
All right, but let's look at it like this here. All right, to be frank about it, he left out Shimon, right, because Shimon was just responsible for the sins of Baal Peor. They was the main ringleader. They just killed the top prince of that particular tribe. Simeon and Levi used to be close, and that Shimon himself, he's not mentioned directly in there, because maybe they say maybe Moses is still upset with Shimon because it's just so close. But what we do know, if you're going to say, it's hinted at when it says, "Hear the prayer of Yehudah." All right, and Shimon means to hear. So, and most of the city of the Simeonites was intermingled with Yehudah, and when Yehudah went to conquer his territory, he told Shimon, "Come up with me." So it's like a lot of correlations in there when we look at it from from a Hebrew perspective, and then if you know the history of the guys that's involved as well, and so Levi itself, it's important for them because they were supposed to be the buffer for the firstborn. So their job was based on them being in a sanctified position, so that you might be a priest, but if because you might be a firstborn, if we go by firstborn. So you might be a firstborn priest, but one of your sons may not be a firstborn. So now, and then he have a firstborn somewhere later on, before your firstborn son have a firstborn. And he won't know anything about the priesthood because he's not part of that lineage, stuff like that. He won't be focused on it. So you took the whole tribe and say, what's your job? Our job is to take care of holy stuff. That's it.
Okay. And when I spoke of Reuben, I said, when it said Reuben lived, because I had to we covered for myself and Chief Meku covered for Chief Prince Jeriel. He wasn't able to make it out this weekend to teach his portion. But I said that when it said Reuben lived, I connected it more so with what had happened with his father in terms of going up on his father's couch. And because that was a death penalty. So I connected it with that. But what you did was definitely something that I could have used, the territory that he lived in, because he lived on the other side of the Jordan, and he would need more, he will actually need more protection from the Creator, because they wouldn't be surrounded with Israelites. They'll be, around.
And across that Jordan, it'd be a kind of rough stream across too, and what people don't realize that it said Reuben was still considered part of the 12 tribes. That means Simeon wasn't mentioned, and Manasseh and Ephraim is under the banner of Joseph.
Right.
So so though Joseph, it was split. He mentioned Joseph.
Right.
And his sons are under the banner. And then the reason Joseph get the blessing, it says, a lot of books might say because he was prince of his people, but it actually means a Nazir, which means separate. They used the word from the word Nazir. So he's separated from his brother. And that's Nazarite is actually separated and consecrated, from the rest of the people. So he was separated from his brother. And plus, the guy to take over is his protege out of the tribe of Joseph. So Joseph has status in Egypt. So Joshua is the most fitting guy while you still got this frontier stuff going on, be out the tribe of Joseph to be the head.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You learn. Toda Rabbi Nasik, thank you again for your enlightening and for your enlightening words and for your wisdom, that the Most High God will continue to bless you and keep you. Hallelujah.
Shalom.
Shalom, shalom.